Just a few more forms to fill out, and we'll get you processed out of here.
So, Doc, what are you going to do now that you don't have to listen to me anymore? You go out there and find some other poor soul that nobody will listen to, give them a hand?
No, Mr. Leach. I think this go-around has earned me a vacation.
Yeah, I bet. Well, that vacation takes you over to Cancun. Be sure and look me up. First round's on me. See a whiskey man, Doc?
God, what is going on? God!
Doc, what the fuck's going on? Doc. Doc! Hello, Michael. So Halloween tells the story of Michael Myers 40 years after the events of 1978 in John Carpenter's Halloween, once again breaking out of Smith's Grove Sanitarium, only this time Laurie Strode has been waiting and preparing for her ultimate confrontation with Michael Myers. The day has come, everybody. I have been waiting for this movie. I have been following this movie to the T for like the past 2 years, however long it's been since that initial announcement came out that Danny McBride and David Gordon Green were making a new Halloween movie. Could not wait to see what the end result of this has been. If you're just finding this channel for the first time, like a lot of you probably are, I just got done reviewing the entire Halloween franchise. All 10 films leading up to this movie, so please check all that out. You can pause this video and watch that first to go in succession, or you can watch this review first and then Tarantino that shit, go back to the beginning and see how we got here. But nonetheless, Halloween 2018, easily my most anticipated movie for this year, my most anticipated movie for probably the past couple of years, and just the potential for what this could do for the franchise, and ultimately the potential for what this could do for the slasher genre. If this movie kills it in the box office, that means Freddy and Jason just might be the next in line to have a resurgence and come back home to the big screen. So, finally saw the movie, and my ultimate emotion after walking out of Halloween 2018 is disappointment. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, guys. This is in the running for taking over the Curse of Michael Myers' spot as the most frustrating entry in this franchise for me. There is so many things that they do so right in this movie, that they nail, that they totally understand how it should be, that it gets muddled almost insufferably by all the things that they completely fall on their face with throughout the runtime of this film. And it's heartbreaking for me to say that. It's heartbreaking for me to tell you guys that, because I wanted nothing more than to turn this camera on and not be able to contain my excitement, not be able to wait to tell you how awesome and flawless this movie is, that it's the second best easily in the franchise. I had no hope that it was going to take over John Carpenter's Halloween, but I knew in my heart it was going to get close. This might not even make my top 5. But getting into the reasons why, let me say, even though ultimately I'm starting off with a bit of a dour note, I do like this movie. This is not a bad Halloween movie. This is not a trash sequel by any stretch of the imagination. It's frustrating. But all the things that they do right, let's get into that. First and foremost, Michael Myers. Michael Myers in this film, portrayed by James Jude Courtney, and in a few scenes, or one scene, it's a little unclear, by Nick Castle, the guy that portrayed the Shape in the original 1978 film, but mostly James Jude Courtney. This Michael Myers feels the most like that original Nick Castle Shape. That's what they were going for. This movie retcons everything after that 1978 film So if you're going to nail one thing, you need to nail the fact that this is the exact same Myers that took on Haddonfield and almost killed Laurie Strode in 1978, but 40 years later. And in my mind, they nail it. The way that he walks, the way that he moves, the way that he stands in the distance, in the shadows, behind trees, and just stares and stalks, the way that it's not so much focused on torture or how painful he can make it for his victims or trying to top himself with each kill. Michael's kills in this movie and the way that he kills and pursues and stalks his victims is the same way that it was in the 1978 Halloween. It's like this childlike curiosity, and he's just going through as this force of evil, just killing people. Some kills, quick, grabs them, stabs them, done. Not trying to fuck around, not trying to have some huge extravagant death scene, just one more. And there's some other death scenes that kind of calls back to some of the kills in previous entries in the franchise, even that original 1978 film, that kind of brings this tone, again, of that childlike curiosity of him just kind of doing things that he knows that he's had fun with doing before. And he does have a little bit of fun in this movie. We've seen in the trailer where he drops the teeth. We've seen the thing with the ghost sheet and everything. Michael Myers does set little mental traps for his victims in this movie to kind of fuck with them a little bit, to have a little bit of fun, which goes back to that childlike curiosity. This is like an evil kid that has been unleashed for a night to go and have some fun. And that's kind of what the tone was in the 1978 film. Finally out, time to get this out of my system, and it feels the same way in this film. And even just superficially, the look of Michael Myers, this is probably my second favorite look next to that original Shatner mask for Michael Myers. Now, if you guys have followed me from the beginning in this review series, you know one of the biggest things I've harped on over and over and over again to ad nauseum length is the masks. I cannot stand how different the masks are and different varying qualities. They don't have any consistency whatsoever. This mask is the best mask since the Shatner mask. It looks awesome. It feels like an old, decrepit version of that same mask from 1978. And the way that the mask kind of plays into the story of Michael Myers in this, like he's kind of drawn to the mask, that's part of him, that's kind of him becoming Michael Myers again. It makes sense, it fits, and it adds a layer that needs to be there for the character. Now, moving on from Michael, we got Jamie Lee Curtis back in this. That was the big news that blew up the interwebs whenever it was announced that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. They have her on board. She's invested. She loves the story. John Carpenter's back. Jamie Lee Curtis is one of the best parts of this movie, to the point where when the movie is not focusing on her, the movie suffers, but I will get into that. Jamie Lee Curtis in this, very different type of Laurie Strode performance than what we got in H2O. Same kind of thing where she's kind of dealing with the aftermath. She has PTSD. She hasn't really moved on with her life, but it's different. This, she's a little bit more psychotic. She's a little bit more unhinged. Her whole life is consumed by that night in 1978. She's been preparing endlessly. She's been preparing her daughter, her granddaughter. She has this house full of traps, house full of security measures. She goes out and she practices with her rifles and her guns almost every single day. This is a woman basically like Sarah Connor in T2 that is preparing for the evil to come back, because in her mind, it is inevitable that eventually it will come back. And her different shades of Laurie Strode in this performance is very interesting to watch. She definitely nails the more emotional side of the character in this when she's kind of breaking down. She definitely nails the badass side of the character. I feel like we got more variety in her emotions and more depth to her character in H2O. But what they go for in this badass vendetta that she's on, they nail it. She nails it, and she's the best aspect of the movie as far as the non-Myers characters.
Do you know that I pray every night that he would escape?
What the hell did you do that for?
So I can kill him.
I also really appreciated all the subtle little nods and winks and callbacks to the original 1978 film. It's a fine line to walk for me, because some movies can do it right and it feels like it's in there and it has a purpose for this movie and it's connective tissue between two films. And other movies that stumble with it, it feels like needless fan service. It feels like little winking moments that takes me out of the movie that doesn't need to be there. And luckily, pretty much every single wink and nod that they have in this film, that goes back to that original John Carpenter film, I appreciate. Now, it brought a smile to my face once in a while. It would actually add to the effect of what they were going for. It's kind of like a mirror image in some states, and I'm not going to spoil, but like some things that happened in the 1978 film, it kind of flips it and does it the opposite way in this film, which is really cool. If you're a fan of the original, you just see it and you're like, ah, that is awesome. I really liked Will Patton's character. That is a character actor that I think has always been very underrated. I liked seeing him in this as kind of, I think he's the sheriff. He's either the sheriff or one of the main deputies. I honestly can't remember, but pretty sure he's the sheriff in this. But he was one of the deputies that was out looking for Michael Myers on the night that he came home in 1978. So this little backstory that he has with Jamie Lee Curtis's character, Laurie Strode, about being there the night that he came home, and as soon as he sees that Michael Myers escaped from this bus, he knows it's about to happen again, just like Jamie Lee Curtis is, but he takes a different approach. He kind of goes the more lawful approach, trying to get the evil back. And Jamie Lee Curtis kind of bumps into him here and there while she's on this out for blood vendetta. I liked their back and forth, a couple of scenes that they had, and just seeing Will Patton in anything, I like the guy.
He's here.
And I like the granddaughter character. I believe the actress's name was Andy Matichak, or Matichak, something like that. But Laurie Strode's granddaughter in this, I feel like the movie focuses on her a bit too much, which again, I will get into in my negatives, but when it does focus on her, just her as a character and her performance, I do like. She definitely doesn't overshadow Jamie Lee Curtis. She definitely doesn't have the appeal of Laurie Strode back in the 1978 film, but for the side characters that we are forced to spend time with, I enjoyed her the most. I feel like her acting performance was there, and I'm not going to spoil her fate in this movie, but while the movie was going on, in my head, I was thinking, if we're forced to spend another movie or two with this character, I'm fine with that. If it ends up going a certain way in the third act, and this is the character that's going to carry on this franchise, which is what my assumption was from the beginning when they casted her, I'm cool with it. I like her, and I'm on board for seeing what this character can become. And my final positive for Halloween 2018 is that I feel like there are quite a few moments where the direction, the camera work, the cinematography really works to this movie's advantage. And it really works to make it feel like a good counterpart for that 1978 film. There's a few very specific shots in this movie that you would almost bet money that John Carpenter came in and just filmed for a day as like a little favor, because it feels like a Carpenter shot. But there are some aspects, there's some sequences, there's some scenes that I feel are perfect for this movie. You watch it and you're like, yes, this is what I paid for. This is what I've been waiting for. You get it. This is it. Like the sequence they show in the trailer where Michael is back in Haddonfield and he just, I'll choose that house. And he just walks in, decimates this chick with a hammer, picks up a knife, walks right next door, finds his way in and kills a person again. Completely at random, no motive whatsoever, just because. That's what Michael Myers is supposed to be. And the way that they film those sequences, the way that they film Myers doing what Myers does, and even some sequences when he's kind of in the shadows, there's a sequence with like these little floodlights, these security lights that's actually really tense and creepy. There's a sequence at the third act where Jamie Lee Curtis is looking for him in this house, and you know Michael is in this room somewhere, and the camera keeps panning around, and it's like, where's Waldo? You're trying to find him, and the way that they shoot it, the way that they hide him in the shadows, awesome. That shit, when the movie is firing on all cylinders with the camera work, the cinematography, and knowing what Myers is supposed to be, those are the best parts of this movie. Now moving into my negatives for Halloween 2018. The biggest overarching negative for me is the writing. I don't know if this is all Danny McBride's script. I thought that he would co-wrote it with David Gordon Green, so I don't know who did what. There is a lot of very forced, almost cringeworthy humor in this movie. And not only is it bad to watch because the dialogue is atrocious in certain scenes, but there's quite a few scenes where you should be feeling scared. You should be feeling tense on the edge of your seat. You should be sweating. But they'll throw a joke in or a throwaway funny line that just totally cuts through that like a fucking lightsaber. There's a sequence which we've seen in the trailer where the closet door keeps opening or whatever, and even though we've seen it, that sequence, once it's unleashed and Myers is there, it should be a very tense sequence, but they throw jokes in while that sequence is going on that just cuts right through the tension. And they do this time and time again throughout this movie. The tone is all over the place. Am I supposed to be scared? Am I supposed to be tense? Or am I supposed to be laughing at this Pineapple Express style humor? it doesn't mix for me, and it's not well written. There's scenes in this movie that feel so random and so thrown in to the point where I'm like, why is this here? Why is there a scene with two cops in between two very tense sequences that are just ragging on each other for the lunch that they decided to bring? That's not funny, that's not interesting, that doesn't add to their characters at all. You could take that scene out of the movie completely and just show the aftermath of when Myers finds these two cops, and it would have been fine. Like, there's scenes like that in this movie where I'm watching it and I'm literally thinking to myself, is this really what we have? Is this, you really put this in the film? Why? There's even lines of dialogue that aren't meant to be funny that are cringeworthy. There's a line of dialogue from Judy Greer's character where she's yelling at Jamie Lee Curtis about, Jamie Lee Curtis is all about, you gotta protect yourself, your security's not here, you gotta get ready. And Judy Greer's like, Mom, the world's not all evil, it's not all darkness. The world is a place of light and love. That sounds cringeworthy with me saying it. It's equally as cringeworthy in the film. When I saw it, I was like, please tell me she's kidding. This can't be a serious line of dialogue in this movie. It can't be. Fuck, it was. Wow. And speaking on Judy Greer's character for a second, now I'm going to get into some of the characters I don't like. Judy Greer, I feel like, had no place in this movie. I've never really been a fan of her as an actress, so whenever she was casted, I was always worried about that. But when I get to her character in this movie, with the exception of a direction that they take her in the third act whenever shit's hitting the fan, that I think was kind of redemptive for her to a degree, throughout this movie, she is insufferably frustrating. I mean, I understand that if you grew up with a mother that just tried to prepare you and handed you guns and everything, you'd probably have a miserable relationship with her. But it's more so in the lines that they give her and the way that she delivers them that you can't get behind her character's frustration with Laurie Strode. And you can't get behind her character's motive to keep her granddaughter away from her mother, Laurie Strode, because just the way that she talks, the way that she interacts with her daughter, with her mother, it feels off. The writing and the performance is off. And her husband, another character that has no place in this movie. This actor and this character just feels so wildly out of place tone-wise with the film. And it even gets down to the point where when something happens in the third act that involves his character, it feels inconsequential. Like when it happens, nobody in the movie has any kind of reaction to it whatsoever. At all. And it's kind of the point where I'm like, you could have just made her a single mother and the movie would have been better. And as far as other side characters, the movie goes away from Jamie Lee Curtis way too much. It gets to the point where every single time that we cut away from Jamie Lee Curtis, I kind of slump down. I'm like, fuck, back to these bitches again. The movie takes a literal beeline to go to this Halloween dance at this high school and introduces this weird love triangle thing with her granddaughter's boyfriend and this other character who you can tell from the beginning is like that friendly guy that likes her but doesn't quite want to say it. Like, there's so many characters in here that are thrown in to eventually be cannon fodder that the story and the lines that they try to force with these teenage characters, you don't care. You don't care at all. When you get knee deep into this dance and there's this weird love triangle shit going on, you're like, I don't fucking care. Go back to Jamie Lee Curtis. Why are we spending so much time on this fucking dance? But the crown jewel as far as bad characters in this movie, the new Loomis. There is a doctor in this movie that takes the place of Loomis. Jamie Lee Curtis actually refers to him in the film as the new Loomis. Fuck this character. Not only is he totally not even close to being as captivating as Donald Pleasance as Loomis, or even Malcolm McDowell as Loomis for that matter, not only does he feel like he's just thrown in because, but they do a story direction involving his character that I'm not going to spoil towards the third act that is horrible. Not only does it come absolutely out of nowhere, not only does it add nothing to the film, not only does it make zero sense, but even after they throw this gigantic curveball at your face with this character, they throw it away minutes later. Like, it's inconsequential to the story of this film, to the point where you could remove his character completely, and except for the fact that this reveal with his character kind of answers a couple of small questions as far as some of the events in the first two acts that you would normally just kind of skate past in horror films, like in Halloween 4, why they would keep him hooked to an IV and not just kill him. Elements like that There's a couple of moments like that his character direction kind of answers, but if you took his character out of the film, Halloween fans would easily skate past those little tiny holes of logic, and you would have a much better film the fact that that character is not here, or at least the direction they took that character is not here. I have no idea what they were thinking when they did that. It's baffling. And it's as bad as I'm saying. Like, when it happens in the movie, most of you that watch it are gonna go, what the fuck does that mean? Where is this going? Nowhere. It's going nowhere. Another issue that I had with the execution of all of this, and it has to do kind of with that shifting tone of not really knowing what direction they wanted to go as far as the tone of the movie overall, the movie really lacks atmosphere. It really lacks that creepy, pliable tension and that creepy, pliable atmosphere that John Carpenter brings effortlessly to pretty much every movie he's ever made, especially the 1978 Halloween. And the fact that you're trying to get back to that, you're trying to recapture that, the fact that you got John Carpenter's blessing saying that you get it, when that's one of the most important parts, and you didn't get it. You didn't get it at all. This movie doesn't feel like the Halloween holiday. It doesn't even feel like there's this rising tension through some of this stuff. There's tense sequences, and they come few and far between, but the overall, this kind of winding tension that the 1978 has, waiting for it to snap, this movie is completely devoid of that. There's no sense of eeriness, no sense of supernatural creepiness that Michael Myers is supposed to bring. It just feels like kind of a paint-by-numbers slasher as far as the atmosphere goes. There are some films in the Halloween franchise that nails atmosphere, and there's some of them that totally is devoid of it. Unfortunately, this is one of those ones that's devoid of it. Getting into my last two negatives, I have a bit of frustration with the fact that they decided to retcon this whole franchise except for the original film. They went out of their way to make it to where Laurie and Michael are no longer siblings, a direction that I have waited for years for them to take and was totally championing the whole time. Everybody online was pissed, like, what the hell, that makes no sense. Why would he even be around if he wasn't her sister? I was all for it. And I'm here to tell you that the movie is exactly the same. Whether or not they're brother and sister or not, they do nothing different with it. It actually makes less sense why Michael Myers goes towards this ultimate confrontation with Laurie Strode's character if there isn't that sibling angle. Like, the fact that he's drawn to her and you slowly kind of get them meeting each other, moving into the third act, about to collide, it's hard to get behind because it just feels like it's exactly the same. It feels like you retconned most of this franchise to do some of the same exact things that all of those films did, and it just feels like a wasted opportunity to me.
Hello?
And my final negative for Halloween 2018, I hated the ending of this movie. It's so sudden and it feels so anticlimactic for me, which I might be in the minority for. Maybe some people will like it. When it ended and I saw the title credits come up, Halloween, immediately I turned to Holly and I went, that's the fucking ending? You gotta be shitting me. And supposedly the ending of this movie was reshot. There was reports months ago that test audiences hated the original ending, so they reshot the ending or parts of the third act. I'm morbidly curious what the original ending was because I hated this ending. To me, it left me totally unsatisfied. And the things about the earlier three acts of the film that maybe bugged me a little bit suddenly got much worse when that ending happened because I didn't have any form of resolution that I wanted. That maybe I'm the only one that watches this movie that wanted that. And to me, the way that the direction they go in this ending without spoiling it, and I will have a spoiler review, to me it seems pointless to do that. And that's all I'm gonna say. Now I'll be honest, guys. Disappointment is kind of taking over my emotions at the moment. So after the dust settles, after this movie has been out, after I watch it for a second time, maybe a third time, after I put some time between me and my initial experience with Halloween, I might grow to like some of the things about it more and care a little bit less about the negatives. But as far as my first impressions, as far as my first viewing experience, all frustration. I couldn't be more disappointed or underwhelmed with what the end result of this was. And maybe that's my fault for getting my hype so high. Maybe that's my fault for getting too excited about this movie. But if I can be completely honest, I'm genuinely shocked that this movie has such high ratings from so many critics, that the score is like at 80-something% right now. genuinely surprised by that, because there's so many things about the writing of this movie and certain characters and certain directions that it goes that it's baffling to me how much overwhelming praise that it's getting. And I have a suspicion that this might have the same type of effect that H2O had, where the excitement of Michael Myers being back and having this ultimate return of Jamie Lee Curtis, once the excitement of that dies down, we're going to start to have a split fan base like we do with H2O. And I'm going to be extremely morbidly curious how, especially my friends, but how a lot of you guys are going to receive this film, because I feel like with the amount of hype and excitement that is out there, we're going to get a lot of different reception from a lot of different Halloween fans. And don't get me wrong, even though I harped quite a bit on my negatives, I think this is a film that every single slasher fan, horror fan, and Halloween fan especially does need to see. For the excitement of seeing Michael Myers back, and for the fact that everybody is going to get something different out of this film, from people who are going to love it immensely and immediately stack it up next to the original 1978 film, and those like me that are going to have a little bit more disappointment than they can know what to do with. So, if you're a fan of Halloween, if you've been excited for this movie, hopefully I didn't just ruin your entire day, but go in with tempered expectations if possible, but absolutely check it out. So with the amount of anticipation that this film has gotten, if you are a part of that hype and you could not wait to see this new film, you definitely need to check it out. But don't feel ashamed if you can't see it right away. Take your time to see it, maybe try to temper your expectations a bit, and check this thing out in theaters at a matinee. So what did you guys think of Halloween 2018? Are you on the end of the camp like a lot of the critics and a lot of the initial screenings have had, where people are loving this movie and you think it's immediately stacked next to that 1978 film as far as quality? Or are you like me, you walked in with certain expectations and you walked out with a lot of disappointment? Put your thoughts down below on Halloween 2018. What did you like? What did you not like? Please try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. Do not be an asshole. I will have a spoiler review this weekend, probably Saturday, where I will discuss at length all the things that I liked and disliked that I could not speak very specifically about in this review. So save all those spoilerific conversations for that review. Keep an eye out for my Halloween re-ranking, finally revisiting the most popular video on my channel by a landslide and re-ranking all of these films. Keep an eye out for that. And October 31st, me and quite a few other horror channels are putting together a video on each of our channels where we are going to rank all 31 films on the 31st of the Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. One big list, ranking all of those films worst to best, so keep your eyes out for that as well, guys. So please like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. If you want to check out some social media links, please check down in the video description below for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, my Spreadshirt store for very cool Cody Leach t-shirts and other merchandise you guys will enjoy, especially if you like horror stuff. Very cool designs over there by the great Woody Bowen. And my Patreon page, which is a great way to give back to this channel, help this channel grow along the way, and get cool exclusive content for your eyes only if you decide to become a patron. So if you guys would check all that out, please, and if you want to check out some more of my videos, such as the rest of this entire Halloween review series, you can check all that out by clicking right over here.